Welcome back as we begin to look at habit 3, putting first things first. And in Dr. Covey's book, he discusses what he calls the urgent and important matrix. I think it's more helpful, instead of aligning the numbers the way he does, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, to do it the way that we read left to right, which would be 1 and 2, 3 and 4. I think I reversed that for the camera. So where he has the urgent column, I've put it over here, and vice versa. You'll see when I put it up here for you. So that if something is not urgent, but yet still important, that we would focus on those things. Now, why focus on the things that are not urgent? Because that's what you can most control. If something is urgent, if it's timely, if it's a deadline that is due like now, you have very little control about how much time to put into it, how to shape it, what parts to pay more attention to research it, to give your best to it. If it's urgent, you're not at your best in investing yourself in that activity. So it's much better to focus on what is not urgent, yet still important. For example, building foundations and momentum. Foundations and momentum in personal growth and rest, key relationships for your personal vision statement, strategic means to your PVS, key objectives, because all these things will prevent or mitigate crises. The second most important quadrant for Dr. Covey are things that are important but urgent. Those things we have to manage. For example, short-term deadlines for our personal vision statement, sudden crisis in health or finance or otherwise, and other types of crises. These are things that we can't control. They just come up. They're going to happen. We can't change them, so we have to manage them. That might mean giving a B+ effort to something instead of an A+. That might mean that we don't do it exactly the way we would like to do it. That might mean that we get others involved and we'd like to do it ourselves. We have to get it done, but we have to manage the way that it's done instead of choosing how to perfect it if we had more time. Hope that makes sense. The third quadrant, according to Dr. Covey, third most significant quadrant, are things that are not urgent and not important. And we limit those things. Busy work that is not toward our PVS, inefficient means toward our personal vision statement, and self-soothing activities. Now, self-soothing activities can be watching television, sitting on the back porch drinking lemonade, talking to a casual friend you haven't seen in 10 years. Those things are not urgent and they're not really important. Now, the friend you haven't seen in 10 years depends on the nature of the friendship. And he's not saying don't ever do that, but he's saying limit how much time you spend with it. There's nothing wrong necessarily in watching TV. There's nothing wrong with taking a nap. But that nap maybe could be an hour instead of 3 hours, and talking to that friend could be 15 minutes instead of an hour and a half. Depends on the nature of the friendship again. Depends on what your personal vision statement is. And so we limit those activities that are not important and not urgent. Now, maybe some anxiety is starting to build up in you, and you're probably starting to put together that if we're going to be truly successful or effective at anything, we're going to make some people unhappy because we're going to limit doing this, we're going to avoid doing that, we're going to pour ourselves into a more focused approach to our life, to a very concrete goal along the way and toward the end, which means we're going to neglect the priorities that some other people have for us. And that is part of being successful. You can't do everything well. You can only do a few things well. The question is, what is worth doing well for you? And so the last quadrant is to avoid people or activities that are irrelevant to your PVS or even opposed to your PVS. There are times that we don't need to simply say, I have to cut this short. There are times we have to say no. So it's important that we continually review and prioritize our end in mind. Are we sure that what we want them to say at our funeral, that we've got that right, that that's clear in our mind? And it's okay to reevaluate it. This is a big deal. This is the way that you're going to spend the next few decades of your life. So don't just write it down one time and then never question it again. It's okay and good to review it and tweak it as necessary. To say no to unimportant tasks and invest our time toward our PVS. We should always be asking ourselves, can this help me reach my personal vision statement for my life? And if it's not, either we need to do away or do less of that activity, or possibly reevaluate our PVS, either one. But not just to react to whatever is easy or avoiding whatever is hard, but to be intentional to pursue what we believe is good. And it will help to establish and write down specific priorities, key obstacles to overcome, and key objectives to achieve and maintain. Two different things. You might think that we only need to write down and articulate the positives to achieve, but the hurdles to overcome is a big obstacle. I mean, it's redundant, but it's true, to achieving those objectives. So part of moving forward is not just achieving the positive, but doing away with those obstacles in the way, and to write down what those obstacles are and plans of attack to remove those or go around those so that we can achieve the positive objectives. We need to work our most important tasks when our energy is best. Some of you are morning people, some of you are evening people. Some of you get more work done in a certain place. In other places, that might be your office, that might be a conference room, that might mean teleworking, that might be at home. Depends on the nature of your work. But when and where do you work best and get your most crucial tasks done there when your energy is highest as well? Build relationship with people who share your vision. Don't just identify with them and connect with them once. Continue to strengthen and hone that relationship so that you can receive more and more wisdom from them, more support, so that you can give more of yourself to them. Because as those relationships grow, you'll be more likely to move forward in your personal vision statement. And lastly, it can help to strategically place visual reminders of your PVS. Sometimes I put note cards up on my visor of my car, just a very simple thing to remind me of what I need to do today. Not just a specific task, but how it relates to my personal vision statement. I've got plaques on the wall, or little framed sayings. I've got figurines that remind me to be a whole person, little statuettes that are symbolic for what they communicate to me. And I put them in places where I tend to forget my personal vision statement, where I tend to get caught up in busy work, or I get caught up in self-soothing of watching TV or anything else that can waste my time instead of investing my time. Those are some simple techniques that you can use to begin to put first things as first and to keep them there. Hope that's helpful, and I hope to see you next time as we look at the next habit of highly effective people.